Hello everyone, welcome to our YouTube channel. My name is Sharon and I'll be taking you through contract management. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and also like our channel. Thank you. So today I'm going to start with introduction to contract management. But before that, I'll have to define what a contract is, because we are talking about contract management. We can't manage what we don't know. So what is a contract? A contract is simply a legally binding agreement between two parties. Or a contract is just a document describing the relationship between two parties, what each of them is to do, and who carries the risk if things don't turn up as planned. Or a contract can either be oral or written, but preferably we should use written contracts because the oral ones are difficult to enforce. So let's go straight to the elements considered while verifying a valid contract. What do you consider, or what do you look at to know that this contract is valid? There has to be an offer and acceptance of the offer. Like the client has to bring the offer and the contractor has to accept it. Then there should be a common intention between the parties involved. The two parties should both have that common intention of, maybe you want to construct a bridge and you want to use some design, so both parties have to have that common intention. They all want the bridge to look like that, or they all want to do the same thing. Then legal capability of both parties to act. That's where clauses come in a contract. So both parties have to have provisions. If any of them breaches then the contract, then there should be a ground for whoever was offended to maybe go to court and get compensated, or the one who breached the contract, there should be a ground for the other party to maybe punish him in some way. Then there should be genuine consent of the parties. Genuine consent of the parties. Both parties should agree to whatever is in the contract. Whatever you've drafted down, that both parties should be able to agree without maybe being forced. Yeah. So from there, that's something small about contract. So let's go straight to contract management. What is contract management? Contract management is a process of managing contract creation, execution, and analysis to maximize operational and financial performance of an organization while reducing financial risk. Process of managing contract creation, execution, and analysis to maximize operational and financial performance of an organization while reducing financial risk. That's contract management. That's how we define it. So contract management is basically about managing that relationship between both parties and those risks to ensure that both parties get the result they originally wanted, what your common intention was. Contract management is focused on implementation of the contract as after it has been finalized. So after you drafting down the contract, then contract management comes in. Contract management is just focused on managing that contract after it has been finalized. Also, contract management has 3 elements it considers while managing that contract. Or what does contract management involve? So contract management involves managing the relationship between two parties. That's self-explanatory since you're just managing the contract. So you have to manage. If you're a contract manager, then you have to manage the relationship between the two parties. That's one of your roles. You have to ensure that both parties, contract management ensures that both parties consent to the terms of the agreement. Remember, in the contract we say to verify that the contract is valid, we have to look at if both parties had genuine consent to the contract. They weren't forced. So simply contract management, for it's just there to ensure that both parties consent to the terms of the agreement. Then the third thing contract management does, it identifies who carries the risk if things don't turn up as planned. Remember, we said a contract does all that. It describes the relationship between two parties, what each party is to do and who carries the risk. So contract management comes in to identify who will carry the risk if things don't turn out as planned. So in contract management, we have some key terms used. One of them, we have amendment. What is an amendment? An amendment is simply a written document reflecting additions or changes to the contract. Just a written document reflecting the additions or changes to the contract. They can be renewals, they can be modifications or extensions. That's the amendment. We also have assignment. An assignment simply refers to transfer of contract rights from one party to another. Assignment is just transferring contract rights from one party to another. We also have advertise. This is just a public announcement of the intention to purchase goods or services. We have seen this in newspapers where companies advertise their products. That will be a contractor, then maybe a client comes and buys them. So it's just a public announcement of the intention to purchase goods or services. Then another key term, we have a bid. We have seen bids in newspapers. Yeah, so what is a bid? A bid is simply an offer to contract with a state submitted in response to an invitation for bids. So it's just an offer to contract with a state. So bids mostly they are for state. You offer to contract with a state and it's submitted in response to an invitation for bids. So maybe a state maybe they want to construct a bridge. Let's say the government wants to construct a bridge. It will invite bids. So different contractors will submit in their bids and the best one will be taken. That's a bid, an offer to contract with a state submitted in response to an invitation for bids. Then we have a bidder. This is if the other one was a bid, then a bidder is just an individual entity that submits a bid. Then another key term, we have an addendum. Addendum is just an addition, change or supplement to a solicitation issued prior to the opening date. So addendum is just a change maybe in your contract, a change, an addition or a supplement to whatever was in the contract prior to the opening date before we finally start executing the contract. That's simply it. Then let's look at elements of successful contract management. Elements of successful contract management. One of them, a contract is said to be successfully managed when the delivery of services is satisfactory to both parties. If both parties are satisfied with how things are moving, how the job is being done, that signifies that contract management is being successful. Then we have another element, the organization. If the organization encounters no contract disputes or surprises. If the organization encounters no contract disputes or surprises, then the contract management is considered to be successful, which means the contract is successfully being executed. Therefore, the organization has no disputes or surprises, or nothing has changed according to what was in the contract. Then we have, if the supplier is cooperative and responsive to the organization's needs. If that supplier, the contractor, is responsive and cooperative with what the organization needs, it's responding, the contractor is responding to what the organization needs, then it's considered to be that the contract is being managed successfully. And the last element of successful contract management, we also have if the expected business benefits and financial returns are being realized. So whenever there is a contract, we expect benefits and financial returns. So in case these financial returns and the expected business benefits are being realized, maybe let's say an example is in case the contract was to build apartments. So the financial benefits will be like the rent I get from my tenants, and the business benefits will be attracting. Maybe the apartments are well built, high quality, so those are the business benefits. So let's look at the phases in contract management. Contract management is generally considered to come in 3 phases, and these phases cover different stages or processes in the contract life cycle. So we shall start with the pre-award phase, which is the first phase in the contract life cycle, and it's simply the time where an offer of services is solicited, developed, and agreed upon. The pre-award phase differs depending on the business usual. For example, are you the buyer or the seller? For the buyer in the pre-award phase, his duty will be to define his requirements, conduct market research, relevant market research, perform risk analysis, and formulate a contract strategy before asking for solicitations. Before even looking for the contractor, the buyer has to first do this: define their requirements, conduct relevant market research, perform risk analysis before they can ask for solicitations or for the suitable contractors. Then for the seller, having seen the request from the buyer, what the buyer or the client wants, for the seller, they simply develop their response in a way that demonstrates that they both understand the customer's requirements and can deliver value for the contract. So for the seller, all they have to do is wait for the client's requirements, or for them, they just develop their response in a way that demonstrates that they have understood what the buyer wants or the client wants, and they can deliver that or the value for the contract. They are able to do what the buyer wants. That's for the seller. That's the pre-award contract. For it, it's all about preparing a good contract. So during preparation, you have to look at what the client wants and the response of the contractor to the client's requirement. Then we also have the award phase. That's the second phase. The award phase simply deals with negotiations and signing of contracts. It's where the agreed upon offer goes into negotiations and ratification. Ratification is simply the action of signing or giving formal consent to a contract. So in the award phase, there is negotiation. Both parties negotiate about the terms of the contract and then sign. That's the award phase. And at this point in the award phase, the buyer usually has multiple offers to consider, since during the pre-award phase, the buyer has to look at all this. He has to write down his requirements, then look at the potential contractors he can contact for this job he wants. So in the award phase, the buyer usually has multiple offers to consider, and the length of this phase depends on how big or small your business is. For the small businesses or small jobs, it might take a relatively small time. It could be fairly straightforward since they are small. There's nothing much to negotiate at, so the signing and negotiation will be relatively quick compared to those businesses working in a complex industry, for example, defense and finance. There are a lot of things to do before the contract is signed. And we shall go to the third phase, which is the post-award phase. This is the last phase of contract management. And the post-award phase simply deals with performance monitoring and termination of contracts. It's where the active contract management takes place. So the post-award phase, the contract has already been awarded. So this one is just where contract management now starts, the active contract management. Like the contractor has started doing his work. With contracts exchanged and signed, the last of the 3 phases of contract management moves into performance monitoring. And it's important to note that a signed contract does not mean that it's the end of the negotiation. Often contracts will need changes according to circumstances, maybe whether the client, maybe the topography of the area. So signing a contract is not the end of it. There might be still negotiations. That's where amendments come in, where we have additions to a contract. For now, I'll end there. Thank you for listening to me. Catch you up next time. We shall continue from there.